All right, Brock, how are we doing this morning?
We're doing very, very well. Before it's quite chilly up here.
Yeah, so if it's zero for me, it must be, I'm talking Fahrenheit, must be -7, -8 for you.
Oh yeah, and in the feels like monitor, it says it's like -30 for us.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think we intersect with Fahrenheit at -40.
Give us the 200 words on who you are and what you're doing.
Well, I'm a phys ed teacher, physical education, high school physical education teacher, just outside of Montreal. I'm presently off that right now because I'm on injury leave. I'm also an author of a book called My Coworkers Think I'm a Pro, which is mostly a triathlon book because that's the main sport that I do right now. In fact, the reason that I'm injured is because in September I was at the Ironman 70.3 World Championships in St. George, Utah. And I mean, it's in the middle of the desert and they hadn't had any rain there since January. And on that day, it was a downpour and hail and like golf ball size hail. And I was going down a hill at 75 kilometers an hour. I don't know what that is in miles per hour. It's like 45 or something. I fell and I broke my clavicle, couple of ribs, and my pelvis in a couple places. So I haven't run since September 18th.
Did you post the X-ray with all the screws?
Of course I did, yeah.
Yeah,
9
of course you
screws.
did.
Yeah, of
Right.
course. That's what
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah, but before you were a triathlete, you were a marathoner. And one of the things people don't know, part of the world where you're from has a really robust marathoning community.
Oh, absolutely.
You talked about like Gerard Cote, who won the Boston Marathon 5 times. It's part of the culture. So, which always amazes me because the weather isn't always great
No, it's not.
running where you are. Kind of like where I am. And this is when you're spinning up big miles, right? So this is, if you're training for Boston right now would be when you need to get in like a 16 to 17 mile training run.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is the coldest part of the year.
I kind of like it like that. I don't like it cold. Don't get me wrong. I can't stand winter. But long runs in the real cold, it just adds a little extra challenge to it and makes it more interesting. So those 30 kilometers don't seem to take as long because you're worried about the cold. So you're not worried about so much about being exhausted. It's like, okay, I got to keep warm here. My tips of my fingers are freezing. I might lose a toe, but I'm not as tired as I would normally be in July. And if I had to choose between the two, brutal, humid heat or, -20, I think I'd rather the cold because you can always lose layers.
Right. No, I'm with you 100%. I would rather run in the cold than in the heat because, it's logistical. I mean, it's a logistical problem, but you can work around it in the cold. Whereas the heat, it's the heat. There's nothing you can do. Right.
Yeah. And because you have to prepare so much thinking about what to wear and everything, it gets your mind thinking about preparation in general. Whereas in the summer, sometimes you throw your shoes on, put a singlet on and go and think, oh, I forgot the gel. I don't have any hydration. What am I doing? Whereas when you think you can't step outside when it's -30 with the singlet on. So you're constantly thinking about, okay, what am I going to do? There's just a bigger preparation with.
Right. And when you combine the distance, right? So if you're going to be out for 2.5 hours in this kind of weather, you got to start there's some unique tactical problems. Like how do you keep your fluids from freezing? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if you're carrying a bottle in your hand, it's going to freeze solid in about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're stuck. You don't have any fluids. And the other one, so same is true with gels. I remember taking a power bar with me once, having it in the outside pocket of my sweater and then trying to bite it. It was like a piece of iron, right? There's no way I could get it in my mouth. The other thing is, if you like to listen to music and you have a phone or some sort of device, guess what? Those freeze too.
Yeah, in a hurry too.
Yep. Yeah. So you got a lot of Boston marathons under your belt too early on in your life before you started this triathlon ridiculousness, which is a kind of a normal arc for amateur athletes, I find, right?
Yeah, particularly runners. I did six of them. In fact, it was, as I say in my book, it's kind of part of the reason why I became a triathlete in the first place. From my house to Boston, you're looking at 5.5 hours in the car. And I've done it so many times and it's boring. Like I could only listen to NPR so many times when you're not interested in the topic. So I decided,
but even then, you lose radio stations in that stretch for
yeah.
like an hour, right?
Exactly.
Like there is no radio station. You probably speak French, so you can get the French radio stations.
Yeah. But still, that particular year, I went and I got a book on CD, and the CD that I chose was Bill Bryson's "A Walk in the Woods."
Yep.
And I put the CD in the machine halfway through, thinking, okay, great, it's time to listen to these wonderful stories along the Appalachian Trail. And they had put the wrong one in, and it was Lance Armstrong's "It's Not About the Bike."
Yeah.
Once you can take Lance or leave Lance, I don't really care. But the interesting part was he talked about the bike a lot, even though it's called "It's Not About the Bike." And it really interested me. I thought, geez, I want to race my bike so bad. But I didn't know how to do it. I didn't think there was races on bikes for adults like me at 40 years old. So get into triathlon. That's the way that works. So if I hadn't gone to the Boston Marathon that year, I wouldn't be a triathlete probably. So
yeah. I remember I picked that book up in a used bookstore in San Francisco one time on a trip. That's a great book. Actually, they're both great books. The Bryson book, I wasn't super thrilled with because I started reading it saying, hey, you know what? Maybe I want to do the Appalachian Trail.
I don't think he was in particularly good shape. Certainly not the guy who was with him wasn't in very good shape. So that kind of makes it a bit more torturous.
Yeah, but those are both good books. I would recommend them. I used to do the same thing, except I used to drop Learn French cassettes so I could pop into Quebec City speaking a little French. And,
good idea.
Because you get that 5 hours with nothing to do. The other thing I used to do is I used to stop in New Hampshire in the Whites and do some trails. You got the run part. You figured out the bike part. What usually sinks runners in the triathlon is the swim part. How did you figure that out? And I didn't get to that part of your book. I bet that's probably a funny part of your book where you're figuring out how to swim.
Where I grew up, I live there now where I grew up, and there's the Richelieu River, which you might know because you've been up here many times. I could, if you're a golfer at all, I could hit a 3-iron shot and put the ball in the water from where I am. But I didn't think to swim in that when I was getting into swim training for my first triathlon. The way I trained for my first triathlon was this. When I was growing up, I was a canoeist, so we were in the river all the time, and every kid has swum before, right? So I know how to swim. So I blew that part off, and I went out and bought a wetsuit. That was my swim training for my first triathlon. And I didn't even put it on all the way. I put it up to my waist and figured, oh, yeah, it feels good. And then I went to Connecticut for my first New London, I guess it is.
New London.
Yeah.
That's where the river is.
Yeah, and I did a sprint triathlon. And the swim part, like you said, it almost killed me. I had never had a panic attack like that before in my life. And apparently that's normal for first-time triathletes. But I'm not kidding. It's funny. It's really funny, the story to tell now. But at the time, I thought for sure I was going to die. I mean, it was a sprint triathlon, so the swim's only 750 meters. And I remember looking out at the course and thinking, that first buoy is at least 6-7 miles away. There's no way
exactly. Yeah.
I got in the water. Yeah. I did a warm up, and that's when I noticed, oh man, this thing is tight. It's constricting. I don't like it. I can't feel the water at all because it's hitting the wetsuit. And then so I got out after the warm up, and I'm standing in line. They're doing the national anthem, and I'm trying to be patriotic, even though I'm Canadian. But in my mind, I'm just thinking, how do I get out of this race? Do I start a fight with somebody? Do I just yank on the zipper of my wetsuit so it breaks? I don't know. So I unzipped it just a little bit so that it could breathe a little bit. And the guy behind me noticed that it was unzipped, and he's just trying to be nice. Dude, your thing's unzipped. Can I help you out? And I snapped at him. I was like, you touch that wetsuit, you die. It's that simple, buddy. Don't touch the zipper. Anyway, I got through it, and now I'm much more comfortable in the water, though it is definitely my weakest.
Yeah, same thing for me. I was a swimmer growing up, right? Down the pond, swim all day, but there's a difference between swimming and swimming.
Yeah, big difference.
And it probably took me 5 years to unlearn everything I knew and then relearn how to do it right with the total immersion training.
Oh, right? Yeah. And that stuff works.
And to this day, I've got it. I jumped in the pool after not swimming for like 2 years, and it's there. It's still there, right? That total immersion is so good. Anybody who's done a sprint triathlon knows exactly what you're talking about when you walk up and you see the buoy and you go, there is no way that's 400 yards. That's at least a mile, right?
Oh, yeah. And then when I did my first half Ironman, because I jumped from that right to that half Ironman distance, and it's like, you're kidding. Like, this is not an airport. Like, that looks like a runway, and like, it's ridiculous. There's no way these people know how to measure anything. But then you start swimming, and it took me, I would say, 10 or so triathlons though to get over panic at some point in the water. Like, it would be fine. And then you get, a little while out and someone would swim over me, someone who knew how to do it. And there's 2,000 of you in the water at the same time.
Yep.
And that panics you because like your goggles are getting ripped off, an elbow in the face, and I'm not comfortable anyway. And even to this day, like the last one I did in Utah, there was a point in the race, I'm all alone, I'm doing well, and the panic just starts to come back and say, stop it. It takes a lot for me to just control it and that's when I do what you just said, concentrate on the total immersion technique.
What I did that really helped in the last one, I've only gone up to the Olympic level with this. I don't have enough time in my life for triathlon. You work into this sort of meditative state, especially if you have the wetsuit on, you have the buoyancy, right?
Right.
You kind of forget you're swimming, and that's the nirvana. And if you can get clear enough in a triathlon to do that, what happens is people train in the pool and they go, okay, I'm pretty good at this. Yeah. Then they get in the water with 1,000 people, and it's every man for himself. Absolutely. And they forget all their form and all their training, and they just start thrashing around.
Yeah, right? You do all the main thing that's the stupidest thing with swimming and a little bit with running, but not as much, is they forget technique and they just try to force everything and pull harder. And it's not about that. It's all about just be relaxed. Relax. Yeah, the more relaxed you are, the faster you're going to go.
Yeah, and with swimming, it's like times 10 because of the resistance level. With running, you can kind of recover, but with swimming, you're working. The harder you work, the slower you go.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can't breathe whenever you want. That's the other thing that I found out. Like with running, you get tired, you just breathe harder. In swimming, you can't take a breath with your head under the water. You can try, but it's not going to work.
But it's good fun, though. And the other thing that I notice, and I'll ask you this question, is the cultures around distance running and triathlon are poles apart.
Yes.
Like they're different people. Like the mindset is different.
Absolutely.
Do you notice that?
Absolutely. Running, when you go to it depends what kind of running event because it changes.
Yeah.
Like if you're on an trail ultra, then it feels like you're at a giant yoga convention. Everybody's very cerebral and, you hear dude a lot, right? If it's a 10K road race that's local, but there's still a lot of people in it, and you know that there's some fast guys. There's always a couple kids from college in it, and it's like, okay, I'm really gonna have to push it here, and they're all business. Triathlon, it's let me tell you about me.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, I don't really care about your train, and they try to. It's so intimidating, even though they might not be trying to intimidate you, but they're telling you all their splits and how much training they do after. And it's like, just stop it. You're scaring me. Because I didn't do a 30-kilometer run yesterday, and you're making me scared because you did. But it's more about me than what's going on, like the event.
Right. Yeah. It's even at like a sprint, right? There'll be this age group of guy who shows up, brings his trainer with him.
Yeah.
And is sitting there spinning and holding court.
Yeah, on his $7,000 bike. It's like, dude, come on. Yeah, and you go to at the beginning of a running race, everybody does it. You're kind of checking out, okay, that guy looks fast. She's okay. That guy I can beat for sure. That guy's got boobs, so I'm going to beat him. And it's kind of like that. But in triathlon, everybody's puffing their chest out, and you get into the transition zone, and some people have all this stuff with them, and you're thinking, what do you need all this stuff for? Like they bring buckets of gear, dude. You need a wetsuit, a bike, and a pair of running shoes. That's it. Like, I don't understand. Like, maybe a helmet, right? What do you got? Like, how long does it take you to prepare? And they they empty their tires of the air and then fill it back up again. And it was like, there was already air in it. I've never understood that. Everybody's got a pump in transition. I'm thinking, what? And I worry. It's like, what did I forget? What do I not know that these people know? And then you get into the race and you finish the whole race and this guy's still coming in on his bike. And well, did you have an accident? Well, no. It's just, okay, well then, what are you wasting all this time and money on for? Well, my coach, your coach sucks, dude. Like, come on.
Yeah, they have, it's very stuff focused, right? Triathlon, mm-hmm. It's very stuff focused.
Yeah.
And everybody has to have the stuff. But then the stuff owns them, right? Because if I got unsalted gel instead of salted gel, my race is screwed, right?
Yeah.
Even though I've been training well for 20 weeks, it's all gone to hell now, right?
And it's never a gel or a bike or a pair of shoes. It's the brand. It's like, I went through 2 goos, whatever. And, and my Cannondale XG20, shut up. Like, well, just ride your bike.
No, I always got a kick out of that because I have an old steel Fuji that I bought in like 1990 something for $800, and I keep Frankensteining it back together. And I always get a kick out of passing those guys on the $8,000 bikes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd like to have one. I mean, and I shouldn't talk. I have several bikes. They're all secondhand though, because like I'm a teacher, so like I'm not going out and buying a $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 bike. But I do have a lot of bikes. It's just I don't understand. They also, you'll see a guy and you see his bike or her bike, and it's worth $1 million. It's just like the pros have, like exactly with the disc wheel and everything in the back. It's all perfect. And then you see them on the bike, and you're thinking, well, look at your position. Like you're concentrating on the wrong stuff. You will never go fast. I don't care if you have a Ferrari under you. If you're sitting upright, you're not going fast. You work on technique before stuff.
Yeah. And the other thing I noticed in triathlon is there's a lot of big people, right? You don't get penalized for being 20 pounds overweight in triathlon like you would in marathoning.
No, yeah. I mean, mind you, those guys, those really big guys and women they're in it for the event, and that's great. But they're not looking to get on the podium or anything.
Yeah, but they're serious. They're putting a lot of time into it. They're serious, and typically and they're great swimmers, right? Typically great swimmers, reasonable bikers. But then when you hit the run, everybody falls apart when you hit the run.
Completely,
Yeah, and you think to yourself, okay, so 2 months of decent nutrition, and you could take, 30 minutes off your marathon.
Absolutely, it's like it's not a swim, bike, walk. It's a swim, bike, run. And like we were just saying before, they'll worry about time in transition or saving 30 seconds on the swim. I swim 3 times more a week. I'll save 30. Yeah, but you could, like you said, you could literally in an Ironman, you could drop 30 minutes in the run by getting in shape, losing some timber.
Right, but you'd rather get that $3,000 teardrop shaped helmet that takes 1% off.
Exactly. Right? And they'll talk about that 1%. I just saved that saves 3%. Okay, whatever. Good for you.
Yeah. But the one thing I did learn from triathlon was running form when you're exhausted, right? Mm-hmm. So you can't, as a runner, you can sometimes bull your way through races if you're strong enough, well-trained enough. Mm-hmm. But in a triathlon, when you get to that run, you got to have form because you don't have the energy to bull your way through it typically.
No, there's nothing left but form. Yeah. Which is a great mantra to get you through it. Like I was saying before, just concentrate on one thing at a time. And when you've nailed that part, that'll get you through one stitch. And then, okay, now how are my shoulders? Are they back? Or am I sitting in a bucket here? Or what am I doing? You got to make sure the form is right. Am I on the front of my foot? Whatever. But to concentrate
and the cadence, on form. They have really sharp cadence in the triathlon.
Yeah, because they do that on the bike as well compared to a cyclist.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So it
cycling
always
race.
pisses me off to get passed by a triathlete in a marathon. And you can always tell who they are because they're wearing the kit. Right?
Yeah, they're wearing a race belt, and they're instead of just pinning the number on,
They get the whole kit.
Yeah.
The stuff on it. Like, okay, you're not swimming today.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what else is fun and funny from your experience here? What's the number 1, 2, 3 stories that you tell?
Well, usually there's the swimming story that I already told you, and now I have that new one from Utah where I fell off my bike, which was actually kind of a cool story because when I fell, I knew something was wrong right away because I heard like a branch snap next to my ear. So it was like, okay, that can't be good. But it was on right at the bottom of a hill, so there's lots of bikes still coming, and these two teenagers who were volunteers for Ironman came out to drag me off the course, and they didn't let me clip out of my bike first. So and they didn't get the whole clip into a bike thing. They're not cyclists. So they're dragging me and the bike is dragging along. And I'm like, just let me clip out first. What do you mean clip out? Anyway, so I clipped out. And then one of the teenagers looks at my collarbone because the bone was like poking through my uniform thing. And he's just lost it. Dude, your bone's sticking out. Like, thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah, whatever. But the help that I got from people in general with that was pretty cool. I had a guy, I went in the ambulance to the emergency in Utah, and I went through the x-rays and the doctor said, okay, we'll line you up for surgery this afternoon. And I just time outed him just a sec. I said, well, I have a flight tomorrow to go back to Montreal from Vegas. And how much does it cost for a collarbone operation here in the States? And he said, well, I don't know. Don't you have insurance? I said, well, yes and no. Where I come from, you just go to the hospital and they fix you and you don't get a bill. It's just like we pay taxes and that's how it works. So no, I don't have like private insurance. How much does it cost? And I said, well, I don't know. Let me go check. And he went and checked. And it's $35,000 in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
And I just said, well, can I get home without having the operation? And he said, yeah, you don't have to have the operation at all. You'll just never be able to lift your left arm again. They said, yeah, you can make it home. Now, the accident was painful, but the trip home, because I had to drive from St. George, Utah to Vegas by myself. First of all, I had to pack my bike up, which took me 6 hours with one hand. And my pelvis was broken, so I can't even walk. And I'm driving myself back to Vegas. And then I got to get on a flight from Vegas to Toronto and then Toronto to Montreal. So you're looking at 12 hours. And they gave me the middle seat in the plane. That was so much more painful than the accident. So that's my new story to tell pretty much.
The things we do. All right. So I'll let you get back to your life. How do people find you and your stuff?
I'm on Instagram under gibbs.brock, and I have a blog called the hacktriathlonblog.ca, and my book is called My Coworkers Think I'm a Pro, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere where you would buy a book.
Cool.
You can get it there.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been fun.
Thank you. It has been
nice
fun.
to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.